Hey everybody, so today we're going to take a look at the conversion of Saul by Michelangelo. And we're going to use some analysis to see that this is actually what he painted. He painted the same thing, which was the Orion Nebula. But what he actually focused on was the trapezium, which is the triangular region inside the Orion Nebula. Before we get into that, I want to talk about Carl Jung real quick. And this is on Wikipedia. And I'm going to read a little bit to you, and then I'm going to show you what Carl Jung actually figured out about the collective unconscious, which is this area which we all share as a collective. What he discovered, and I think if he had been alive a little bit longer or long enough in order to see he died in 1961, and in 1961 we didn't have the kind of images that we have now that we can actually see in the cosmos. Perhaps if he had studied this long enough, if he had been alive long enough, he would have gotten a chance to discover some of the things that I have that kind of confirm some of the things he was talking about. Let's read just a little bit here. So he died in June of 1961. He proposed and developed the concepts of extroversion and introversion archetypes and the collective unconscious. His work has been influential in psychiatry and the study of religion, philosophy, archaeology, anthropology, literature, and related fields. He was a prolific writer, though many of his works were not published until after his death. The concept of analytical psychology is individuation, the psychological process of integrating the opposites, including the conscious, with the unconscious, while still maintaining their relative autonomy. Jung considered individuation to be the central process of human development. Jung created some of the best-known psychological concepts, including the archetype, the collective unconscious, the complex, and synchronicity. The Myers-Briggs type indicator, a popular psychometric instrument, was developed from Jung's theory of psychological types. Now, this is really interesting, this next paragraph here. Jung saw the human psyche as by nature religious, and made this religiousness the focus of his explorations. Jung is one of the best contemporary contributors to dream analysis and symbolization. Now that paragraph says a lot, because what we've discovered so far in all of this art and these paintings from the masters is that they are all religious by nature. And when you think of art and you think of the way that these people come up with things in order to paint them, what they're actually painting is they're painting something that is coming from the unconscious mind, more than likely from a dream state. What we notice about this particular area, the Orion Nebula, and what we see in these various symbolisms, is we see that the symbolism is pretty much the same among all these various areas. Now, one quote I wanted to show you from Carl Jung: "There is a thinking in primordial images, in symbols which are older than historical man, which are inborn in him from the earliest times, eternally living, outlasting all generations, still make up the groundwork of the human psyche. It is only possible to live the fullest life when we are in harmony with these symbols. Wisdom is a return to them." So people were thinking in primordial images. This is the way we think when we dream. When we dream, we actually think in images. When we read all of the ancient texts are described as visions, what people actually saw. So when we read the fact that he looked at dream analysis and symbolization, if he had explored this to actually seeing art and being able to relate this to what we see in the cosmos, I think maybe he would have put the pieces together. But all this really does is it confirms what we have seen so far. So when we take a look at this imagery right here, and we take a look at what we saw in the Emerald Tablet of Hermes or Thoth, we see that the father is the moon, its mother is the father is its sun, the mother is the moon. And in each one of these images, whether it be Yaldabaoth, whether it be Osiris, which is what we see as E.A. Wallace Budge actually defined the eye in the triangle as Osiris. Right here we see Christ in the middle. We see the sun and the moon on either side. Right here we have a Buddha, sun and the moon. We have Abraxas right here, which Carl Jung actually talks about in the Gnostic Library, the Seven Sermons of the Dead. We see Mithra as the sun and the moon, and then we see right here. Now, what's the common thing that we see in all these? And this is where the analysis gets in here. We've already proven that Michelangelo painted this guy that we see right here in the creation of Adam. And we've already linked that to the Orion Nebula. It has not been debunked, and it will not be debunked. And the discussion on that particular image is over with. So we can now use it as part of our foundation for looking at these other things. So in each case, we see the sun and the moon. And so we see the description of Yaldabaoth here. And if we take a look right here, for example, I've shown you the relationship to the Orion Nebula in Michelangelo's paintings. And these are some close-ups of that. These are the thinkings and primordial images. Our unconscious mind, humanity's unconscious mind, is tied to this area. Some people, some of the master painters, were better able to pull it out than others. Michelangelo was one of those. He was one of those that was able to connect to this area. This area apparently receives and also gives back. So the unconscious mind of humanity actually lives in this area, which is a really interesting concept. This would actually be the mind of all of humanity. That's the reason we see things like this and this. So now let's take a look at our next thing here. And we can even see that other people are doing this as well. This is actually found on Bible.cc, the Bible Encyclopedia. I've got a link to it right here. You can look up Jesus and the Cosmos on there. And here's another one from the same one, Journey to Heaven, and you can see from the 3 stars here and the shape, they're actually speaking of the Orion Nebula. This is all over the place, and it's coming from the unconscious minds of humanity. Now, we know it's the unconscious mind because when people are pulling from their dream state, they're pulling it from a very exact, well, we can do overlays, in other words, and we see this stuff going all the way back before the first telescope. This means that it is embedded in the unconscious mind of humanity. Okay, so let's take a look at this symbolism again real quick. This has already been linked. It's been linked to the Orion Nebula. Yaldabaoth, we can prove that it's been linked because if we take a look, we can see Yaldabaoth right here. This is actually some kind of an old medallion with, it looks like Greek lettering around it. But as you can see, it also is showing the same thing that we see in the Orion Nebula. And interestingly enough, this is an infrared picture of the Orion Nebula done with the WISE telescope. And what we find in history is that it does not matter whether it is a full visual version or whether it is infrared, because, for example, this right here, this particular church was done in 1737, also showing the Orion Nebula. And as you can see, the same pieces are right here, and this is also an infrared, 1737. So the unconscious mind does not care about the visual spectrum, which is another interesting concept that we see here. But now let's take a look at the symbolism that we have here. So this guy has already been linked. Yaldabaoth we saw has already been linked. This has been linked because if we take a look at the Orion Nebula, the trapezium is actually that triangular area that we see inside of the Orion Nebula. And now here we see Christ. Christ is located right here, and you see the sun and the moon on either side. Okay. Well, now let's take a look at what we're going to explore today. This right here is the conversion of Saul, Michelangelo's conversion of Saul. And as you can see right here, we have Christ, and you can see this yellow thing that he's floating on top of right here. That yellow thing that he's floating on top of right there is actually the trapezium of the Orion Nebula. We can take a look at this by zooming in, and I'm going to go ahead and turn my background on real quick. And this is actually the Orion Nebula that we see in the background. And we're going to zoom in to about 50%. Now, if we take a look at what we see right here, there is a curvature of this yellow thing he's floating on. there is a line that follows all the way through at this particular angle right that you see right here. And you see this man that's standing right here who's naked, and you see her right here. She's got this this look like she's got this guy's head that's on top of her. It's almost shaped like a cone. And you see this water area right here that follows the curvature of his body. Okay, so now if we take a look at the Orion Nebula and we begin to take away the area which is his painting, we can still see that the same yellow trapezium area with the curve right here, with his body, this is his butt right here, and his arm follows all the way around, and this waterway that we see right here. And what I've got is I've got another image at the top that can really show you the detail here. So right over here we have the Orion Nebula trapezium. So this is a zoom in on the middle area of the Orion Nebula. This is actually pointed to as the eye in the triangle. This is the triangle right here, which is the trapezium. This is where everything starts. And then I've got this at 50% and 50%. So it's 50% conversion of Saul, 50% Orion Nebula. And then right down here, I've got this area right here zoomed in on. So if you look at this area right here, which is him, you can see his body in all pieces of the painting. You can also see the waterway to the right of his body on all pieces of the painting. You can see the curvature of his body coming up. And you can also see her as well, this cone shape right here that comes up in all directions. He's standing on the right side of the trapezium, and if we want to go even further, the curvature of this yellow area is also the same curvature of here. It also goes in the same angle that we see right here as we see right here. He's painted the trapezium, and this is what he's painted. He's painted it as Christ. Okay, so I'm going to leave a link to the image so you can analyze it yourself. And I always, as always, I encourage everyone to go out there and download the actual original and find a very high resolution image of the Hubble photograph of the Orion Nebula. I've had some people ask questions about, well, we can't trust NASA and all that. That's all conspiracy theory, because you can actually go back and compare NASA's images against amateur photography, and that takes care of that right there. And we can actually see that the amateurs are photographing the same thing as NASA does. Once we've compared those two, then we can take NASA's, since we've already confirmed it with the amateur photography, and we can, of course, zoom in on NASA's to get the high-resolution images that we want to see. But the images are the same, nevertheless, from a distance. So Carl Jung, he actually knew what he was doing by tapping into dream analysis, because this is actually where the masters are coming from when they develop the art that they did. It's actually coming out of the unconscious mind of humanity, and they're pouring it out into their art. What they don't realize, or what Carl Jung didn't realize, is that just more than just general symbolism, these masters were pouring out exact copies or representations of what we see inside the nebula itself, and they were pouring it right into the art that we see. Now next time, in our next video, what I'm going to show you that kind of brings things together even more as far as our confirmation goes, is I'm going to show you something interesting with what we see when we take a look and focus in on the Orion Nebula when we take a look at it in stellarium. Right here, what you're looking at the Orion constellation. I've focused in on the Orion Nebula, and it's exactly, well, almost exactly, at 180 degrees, which means we're looking at it due south, and the Orion constellation is vertical, straight up in the sky. The Orion Nebula, we're looking at it due south, as if you were standing in Giza, looking south, because that's exactly where we're located in this particular, this area. I've actually homed in on Giza, as if we were standing in Giza itself and looking south right up in the sky when the Orion Nebula was 180 degrees south. This is what we would see. And so I have something very interesting to share with you that even further ties the art together in the next video. Guys, take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Links will be provided for you in the description area and in the comments section.